So can you tell us a little bit about your career before joining Cwmpas?
I have had a long career in the civil service for 17 years. Prior to joining the third sector about 7 years ago now. So my predominant experience, I suppose the bulk of my career has been in policy, a variety of policy. I've worked in Whitehall, I've worked in regional government in England, I've worked in the Welsh Government in the Senedd, I've been a committee clerk and heads of policy across a range of areas. Latterly, the focus has been on the early years, but historically I've worked on climate change, community justice, a whole range of voluntary sector policy in Whitehall. So I've done a whole raft of different policy roles. I was the clerk of the Public Accounts Committee for a while and clerk of the Equality of Opportunity Committee. So a whole raft of different experiences within the civil service. And then I made a change sort of 7 years ago and went into the third sector. I became a director of Wales for Homestart UK, and then went on to be the chief executive of Homestart Cymru. And Homestart is a family support charity, and I've been leading the sort of operational side of that for the last few years.
So what's been your biggest learning since becoming CEO?
I became CEO in 2019, following a merger actually of 7 different charities. So it's a bit of a baptism of fire at the time. And 9 months later, COVID struck. So we've been on a bit of a journey as an organisation. And my CEO journey has been one of, I suppose, constant change. And I think that's one of the things that I've learnt going through is that actually nothing stays the same for long. And actually, we've got to adapt as organisations, but also as a leader, you have to adapt your style, your preferences continuously to be able to navigate uncertain times. I've really learned that I'm quite resilient in all of that. I enjoy change. I'm actually quite positively energised by challenge and I really enjoy being at the helm of an organisation and helping move organisations through different periods of challenge. It's not, I knew it already, but I suppose I knew it in theory, but I now know it. The realities, it's an organisation is nothing without the people in it. And I've learned that as a CEO, I don't hold all the answers, but I do have the ability to bring people together, to create the right conditions for people to contribute their best and to be able to ask the right questions so that we can solve the problems of the day together, and creating a happy, sort of safe environment in which everybody can contribute effectively is really key. So I've learned a huge amount in a relatively short time through the last sort of period of big change with COVID, the pandemic, cost of living crisis, and other internal sort of changes. So yeah, I've learned a lot about myself and my style in that time.
How do you relax? How do you spend your spare time?
Nothing massively surprising. I love being outside. I love being connected to nature. I love walking and running a little bit, less so lately, more walking. I love being with my family and people that are important to me. Human connection and connection to the world around me is really, really important. Like a bit of yoga and being by the sea and travelling and spending time with family. I love reading and time on my own. I've got 3 children, so it's a busy environment at home. So I love escaping into a quiet corner with a book and gardening. So yeah, lots of different things that take me either into a space of human connection or out of it, depending on how I feel.
How would you describe yourself in 3 words?
I'm hugely passionate. I'm passionate about the things I believe in. As I said, human connection to the world around me. I'm really passionate about that. I'm really caring. I care about the people in my life and the things I'm passionate about. And I'm curious. I'm really inquisitive. I love to learn. I feel like I'm on a constant journey in and out of work, as a mum, as a CEO, as a friend, as a daughter, as a wife. I'm always learning, and I love personal growth and learning and finding out more about the world.
So why did you want to come and work for Cwmpas in the first place?
So I've had quite a long-standing relationship with Cwmpas over the years, mainly as a recipient of the services that are provided. I've dipped in and out of different programmes over the years, and I've always been hugely impressed by everybody that I've worked with and everybody that's provided expertise and support in my previous roles. I'm hugely passionate about what Cwmpas stands for, a fairer, greener economy, people and the planet at the centre. Those are the things that are at the heart of my own belief system, at the things I value personally and professionally. And in previous roles, I've worked on a number of areas where I've sort of dabbled at the edges of those issues that Cwmpas focuses on, and I'm really excited to come and join what I believe to be a fantastic organisation full of amazing people, but focused on something that I'm really passionate about, and it brings together a range of interests that I've had into one place, really. So I'm really excited about the potential of the organisation to make change for the future. I'm really excited to join and be part of that journey.
What would you say your philosophy for steering an organisation was?
People are at the heart of any organisation, and an organisation can only succeed in what it's setting out to achieve if the people within it are able to contribute their best and to be able to move towards that goal. I like to think of the lighthouse analogy as sort of the philosophy that guides me. A lighthouse is, a sign of safety, a sign of hope. It's also horizon scanning, looking out for danger. It's visible on the horizon. So yeah, I like to think of the lighthouse analogy as one that I kind of align with, really, and see my role really as being there to scan around strategically, but focus in on how do we create a safe, hopeful environment in which people can thrive.
What would you say your vision for Cwmpas was?
I'm really, really powerfully impressed by the position that Cwmpas has created for itself as one of the biggest development agencies in Wales. I think there's huge potential to continue to cement that position, to put Cwmpas right at the heart of driving change for the future. At the moment, we have an economy that is predominantly based around monetary value, and we know that that's disproportionately benefiting the few at the expense of the many. And I think that there is huge power and potential for Cwmpas to continue to drive forward a different value system in the economy through supporting social business, but through the range of programmes that we have, with which I've got to get to know many of them. But I think that my vision is to continue to build on the great foundations that have been put in place by my predecessor and the team, and to work with a fantastic team of staff to keep driving forward.
So what are your priorities, would you say, for the first few months in your new role? And are there any areas that you feel need urgent improvement at all?
My priority coming in will be to listen intently, to learn both internally about the work that we're doing, learn a lot more about it, but also to be really engaged externally, connecting with other key players in Wales, but also with communities across Wales. Really keen to hear from everybody, really, about the role that they see Cwmpas playing in the future, what the priorities and challenges are. I think that the challenges will be many. There will be many challenges that are akin to those for any charity at the moment. So I know funding is a huge priority for the charitable sector, and I'm sure that will be a key priority as I come in as well. Building and maintaining those relationships, the strong relationships that we built, will also be a key focus for me and a priority, and just making sure that we navigate what's essentially another period of change for the organisation with stability and building for the future.
Felly, fel sefydliad Cymru gyfan sydd wedi leoli yn Ne Cymru, sut ydych chi'n meddwl y gallai Cwmpas bontio'r bwlch rhwng y gogledd a De Cymru?
Dwi dod o'r gogledd yn wreiddiol, felly dwi yn o ddifri deall faint mor anodd mae o i teimlo fel perthyn fel aelod o staff neu fel rwy'n yn cymuned yn y gogledd. Felly, ond hefyd mae'r un problema neu yr un heriau i bob cymuned ymylol sydd ddim yn teimlo fel maen nhw'n cael ei ddeall neu clywed. Felly, mae'n anodd, ond dwi'n meddwl mewn ffordd mae Covid wedi helpu mewn ffordd, achos mae wedi creu fatha level playing field o gallu dod at ein gilydd online, ond hefyd mae'n rhaid wneud yn siŵr bod ni dal yn dod at ein gilydd yn person, achos mae'n rili pwysig i creu y perthynas ac i dod i nabod ein gilydd. Felly mae'n heriol, ond dwi ddim yn gweld o fel her dwi ddim yn gallu dod drosto. Mae'n just rhaid bod allan yn y cymuned a wneud yn siŵr bod y tîm a staff sydd yn Cwmpas yn edrych ac yn dod o llefydd a cymunedau yma i wneud yn siŵr bod ni yn cael y lleisiau mewn i'r gwaith ac i hefyd just wneud yn siŵr bod ni'n cysylltu efo bob cymuned ymylol yn Cymru i wneud yn siŵr bod y lleisiau yn dod mewn i'r gwaith ni, gwaith allanol ni.
How do you see Cwmpas playing a role in addressing current issues like the cost of living crisis?
I think Cwmpas has a strong role to play. I think the cost of living crisis is disproportionately affecting people that were already marginalised or facing inequalities. We know that. And, social inequality is only set to continue to increase with quite disastrous consequences for many communities. Back to that economic model, really, the one we have doesn't benefit people in general, it benefits the few, and Cwmpas is passionate about creating a fairer economy, and I think and playing a part in supporting the formation of a different economy through support development work with businesses, social businesses, charities and cooperatives. And I think there's a really strong role to play both in terms of influencing change for the longer term, but in terms of in the short term as well, generating greater community ownership of business and greater community power, sharing power, breaking down some of the power inequality that perpetuates the systems that we have, systems that are at breaking point themselves and are not serving people well. And as the cost of living crisis continues and the climate crisis continues and the impacts of COVID continue to bite, the pressure on those services continues to grow, and we need a different model. We need communities to be taking decisions and taking power back into their hands, really, to drive forward in a very different way. And it's interesting because I heard somebody from Partneriaeth Ogwen in Bethesda, which is where I grew up, talking recently on a post on BBC Sounds, I think it was, Maleri, and she was talking about disadvantage and perception of disadvantage and people from an outside perspective seeing disadvantage in communities in one way, but actually within a community, the things that are seen as disadvantageous may be true, but there is also much that is seen to be positive within communities, but they're constrained in their ability to release that asset and enable a more positive way of living alongside the cost of living challenges. So I think Cwmpas has a really strong role to play in that space. Blaen y Ffestiniog as well, where I drive through there all the time going up and have done for years because I've lived in the south for a long time now. But you see the regeneration of these places where they start to provide hope for young people. So the economic migration that we've seen in generations before, where people haven't seen hope of positive, prosperous life in places, it's really lovely to see that turning around, and the powerful work that's going on in those partnerships is incredible, and it's really turning community challenges that have been there for years and that have always been a source of friction and tension into positive outcomes. It's incredible and really powerful to see.
What does a good team culture look like to you?
I think a good team culture is one in which people are well connected, people are valued, there's trust, safety, there's space for healthy conflict, but in a safe space, and where people are really empowered to get on with their work and just to be able to fulfill their roles in the way that plays to their strengths and gives them autonomy to act. And I think flexibility for me has always been really, really key as a woman working in senior roles and juggling the demands of family life. I think, and other people have different things to juggle. It's not all about families, but it's about enabling people to balance the priority of work for them and fulfill their career ambitions in a way that enables them also to prioritise the things that are important to them in their world outside of work. And I think in that space you can really create a really strong culture where people are free to do their work in the best way possible, but in a way that is balanced against their happiness in a more holistic way. But definitely strong connections between people, building relationships between people is also really key and tricky at the moment in a remote sense, or trickier.
So Cwmpas is now a fully remote organisation. How are you going to promote company culture and values with everyone working from home?
So I think it is tricky, as I just alluded, it's building relationships with each other and getting to know each other is really fundamental to a strong positive culture and working together effectively. That's undoubtedly more difficult remotely. In many ways, we connect very differently in person. That's the way we're made as humans, and actually everybody's different. So some people find it easier remotely and others find it easier in person. But I think it's striking a balance. I think for me, it's about communication. You've got to have really fundamentally strong communication more than ever, and a mixed method of that communication. So you've got, you can communicate online, but also that you make sure that you are providing opportunity to connect physically, and doing that in a way that brings people together positively and powerfully, but in a focused way, so that you're making the best use of people's time. And it's about behaviour, I think, as well. So it's about setting the right behaviours and living and breathing that through the entire way that you work, so that connection and communication is a fundamental part of how you operate as an organisation. So it's challenging, but I think, having some fundamental building blocks in place can really make it work. And it also enables people to balance their lives in a better way than I think it's broken down barriers that were there for generations, and it's now finding the right balance to make it work.
What is your vision for bringing affordable housing into reality for people in Wales?
It's a really complex area, and it's one that I will have a lot to learn on. I'll be honest, it's an area that I'm looking forward to getting to understand more. But my thinking is that actually, communities really need to own the solutions to this. Communities themselves have so much to contribute, and they know their communities best. So I would want to be listening to them about how they see the solutions working for them. I do know that it's a complex area, and it can be really difficult for communities to build their own homes, and that access to capital is particularly difficult. And I know that we're thinking about that and looking at with partners at how we might be able to help in that space. So I'm really looking forward to getting to know more about it.
This is a question from Alan in SBW, and he asks, what part can Cwmpas play in decarbonising Wales?
Again, it's an area that I'm looking forward to learning more about. But I think Cwmpas's strategy really sets a strong platform, and it sets our intentions. And I hope that as an organisation, we will be able to demonstrate that we're leading the way in becoming more sustainable as we move forward. We've taken a big, bold step of closing offices, which I'm hugely impressed by as an outsider. As that decision was being made, I looked in with awe really at how bold and brave a decision that was, and one which leads the way. I think during COVID we were able to navigate remote working, and a lot of organisations moved back to office working straight away. So it was a really brave step to take, and I'm really impressed by that. In terms of decarbonisation more generally, I do believe that behaviour change is really key. And as we are working with communities and social businesses, there is a role for Cwmpas to play in supporting that behaviour change, which will ultimately change the way consumers operate, and that will hopefully drive those with more power to do more fundamental things to operate differently.
This is a question from Hugh in Communities Creating Homes. And he asks, based on your experience at Homestart Cymru, do you think there's a role for Cwmpas in enhancing cooperation in the early years and childcare sector, supporting the development of childcare co-ops, for instance?
Yes, absolutely. There is a real role for Cwmpas in the early years. I think childcare cooperatives are ones we automatically think of. There are a few really good examples already, particularly in England. Childcare is, as a business model, is not an easy one to make viable, but it's not without complexity, but it's absolutely really relevant to the cooperative model. And there are lots of other examples as well. So residential childcare for children looked after. Welsh Government priority to remove profit from care provides a real opportunity for the cooperative model to step in. And more broadly, the early years is all about giving children the best start in life. And, the children of today are our future generations. And if we are looking for a fairer, greener economy with people and the planet at the centre, then we have to start in the early years, and we need to be driving behaviour change within the children at the youngest. And there's some great examples around the world of initiatives focused on the early years around climate change or connecting communities and children in communities back into their natural world and creating that passion and ownership of their natural environment, which sets them up then to behave quite differently as they move forward into adulthood. So I think a lot to think about and a lot to work out in my own mind, but I hope my experience of the early years will be really helpful in helping identify where Cwmpas's role can be in that space.